Is there any way that Republicans and conservatives can still hold their stance on this issue of calling for tougher border protection and not offering, as you say, amnesty to illegal or undocumented workers, and somehow win back the support of Hispanics who are pro-life, who favor some Republican political stances?
Fair is here because we possess long-term expertise from the perspective of the general public interest. We're not making money off immigration. Our political power is not expanded by it. We just want to do what's the right thing for the country. And what we're saying is that the proposals in Congress do not reflect the electorate's views, including Hispanic Americans' views. Scott Brown, Massachusetts, tough immigration control positions carried a plurality of Hispanic support. There is no evidence that Hispanic voters are going to the polls voting on the immigration issue. What are they voting on? Well, education, healthcare, maybe some other issues, not immigration. There's no evidence at all that the Republicans are losing votes of Hispanic American voters because they want to see the borders controlled. And in fact, John McCain and President Obama both campaigned on a platform. It wasn't amnesty, it was first, we have to restore the credibility of the American people that our immigration control system is working. We have to provide the structures on the border. We've gotten promise after promise. This administration, if it were serious about an immigration bill, if it were serious about getting the job done, they'd be talking about this virtual offense initiative would be put in place. We'd have that done.
They're working on it.
We'd have it's a disaster, and it's not going to be.
It's a disaster that started under the Bush administration.
They would have finished the structures that were in place in Congress, mandated. They would have had. We would have interior enforcement. We'd have a robust employer sanctions enforcement. Worksite operations would be continued. They would be expanding detention space. They would be. We could actually solve this problem. And the things that were working, the administration actually.
I'll let you reply in a second, Marshall. But first, we have a caller on the line. Jeanette from Gaithersburg has a question about immigration reform. Hi there.
Hi, how are you doing?
Good. What's your question?
I have two parts to the question. The first part is at this point, how can we identify the people that are here illegally? How can, what type of census or poll can we get in order to ask them to apply for citizenship legally? And the second part is it's kind of based together, I guess. How can you really get the people that have come here to come forward? What are in the works, or what are the plans, or is there a plan?
Great question. Dan, your organization advocates reducing the numbers of immigrants into our country.
Reducing overall immigration.
Both legal and
absolutely.
illegal.
We need a break. We need a break.
With an estimated 12 million illegal immigrants in our country, is it really realistic to say that we can deport those people?
Well, we're not going to deport everybody here, but we can certainly encourage many to go home. Many are going home because of the economy. And the idea behind amnesty is flawed anyway, because people who have systematically violated our laws, not only immigration laws, but tax laws, identification laws, a whole range of fraud issues associated with being here illegally. The idea that suddenly they're going to turn around and play by the rules because you offer an amnesty is completely bogus. And that's why the caller raises the important issue, which is that unless you restore credibility to the immigration control system, encourage most of the people here illegally to go back home, which many people are going back home now. If you have something that's working, why did you stop it? Why did the administration reverse progress that was being made in the Bush administration through enforcement and attrition that would actually, over time, not in one day, we didn't create the problem in one day, so it's not going to be solved in one day. Right. But these things are actually working. And instead, there's no public policy reason to even be considering an amnesty program right now. Why do we need to be talking about amnesty at all? The more politicians talk about amnesty, the more they encourage more illegal immigrants to come into the country.
Marshall, this is a political issue that can kind of come and go with different leadership in Capitol Hill. Why would an undocumented worker feel comfortable coming forward and identifying themselves as such if they worry that perhaps another party will take office and change their documentation or change their status? Why should they come forward?
That's why ultimately this has to be a legislative solution, and part of that solution has to be to require the undocumented immigrants who are here to come forward, register, pay their taxes, pay extra taxes, pay a fine, and go to the back of the line. All of those things are critical because if it's an administrative relief effort alone, you're right, it could be reversed by a subsequent administration. But look, we want to level the playing field for all workers, for all employers, and for the American taxpayer.
The law.
They are enforcing the law. They've deported more people in the last year than Bush did under any of his years.
And why not continue doing it?
They are continuing doing it. But the notion that we're actually going to get rid of 11 million people here is not only would not only be economically devastating, because it would, if we were to actually try to do mass. No, I'm not. If we're trying to deport 11 million people, you're talking about a $2.5 trillion hit to GDP. If you're talking about reform that we're talking about,
what do you have against tightening the labor market at a time?
If we're talking about reform that we've got on the table, we're talking about a $1.5 trillion gain to the economy.
There's also talking about lifting. There's a lot of disagreement on the issue from both sides. There's a lot of disagreement. I'm running out of time. What areas do these two sides agree on? Because I think a lot of Americans overlap, whether you're Republican or Democrat. A lot of people agree that this issue needs to be addressed, whether it's this year or next. Where do you have agreement?
Well, I think there's a polarization emerging for two reasons. One side of this debate has decided to engage in nothing but smear tactics.
But I want agreement, because I think viewers want to hear where you agree.
Second divide
is there anywhere that you agree? Border Patrol protection?
The second difference is we are talking about the rule of law and respecting it. And the reason for the polarization is that one side that wants amnesty is leaving the general public of the view that there's a class of people in this country who can violate the law routinely over years and years and have it something wiped clean.
So no agreement
the rest
from
of us
Dan's
respect.
side.
I'm saying there's agreement.
Do you see agreement?
Yeah, well, I do. Because I agree with the vast majority of the American public that wants more secure borders, that wants a crackdown on employers who are doing illegal hiring and undercutting U.S. workers, and that wants a realistic solution for the 11 million people who are here. They want them to come forward and pay their taxes. They do not think that it's practical, realistic, or in our collective economic self-interest for those hardworking illegal immigrants to go back home.
Marshall Fitz, Dan Stein, thank you so much for joining us.
It's my pleasure.
Real pleasure.
We'll take a quick break right here. Back with